Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Astrology Channel. This is me, Joji, and I am here with Kyle Pierce. We're astrologers, and we do daily/weekly horoscopes. This is what's happening. If this is your first time here, welcome. Hi, Kyle. What is happening this week?
So this week, Venus enters Scorpio. We get a Mercury trine Pluto and Uranus and opposite Neptune on Wednesday. This will be the first week of Libra season. And then Mercury is going to join the sun in Libra a little later in the week. And then Mars is going to complete a trine with Saturn, which I'm officially labeling the pinky and the brain aspect.
Nice. With that out of the way, we have, of course, Moon Day on our Monday. This is September 23rd. Moon is waning in Gemini, Peregrine in Venus's terms, and Mars's decan square Saturn and moving towards a conjunction to Jupiter. And this Monday is kind of giving me I hate Mondays vibes. And we've been on this spot in the zodiac not too long ago. And before we were dealing with Saturn and a Sun opposition, and then the Moon was in the middle of that T square. So it was a little bit more stressful. Now the Moon is coming in to that spot again, still dealing with the square to Saturn, but now she's moving from Saturn to Jupiter, which can have a bit of a soothing component to that day. I feel like the vibe of the day, I guess, is just starts with I hate Mondays, but maybe a friend helps you get some of those feelings out. Maybe like in the image, you're this sad little girl just crying because Father Saturn just yelled at you, and it was very disconcerting and startling. But then you have a teacher or like a good uncle that you can just like turn to, and they'll soothe your tears and tell you a nice and good story, I guess. And you're gonna take a nap and move on to bigger and better things.
Monday is very emotionally up and down. I feel like it's very much like an overtired toddler who's going to get like both the Saturn square treatment, the like
Timeout.
yeah, like go in the corner if you're going to cry like that, which isn't very helpful. The Jupiter conjunction is, nicer, but like just behave and you'll get to have candy afterwards. But then maybe later, the Mercury square is like, actually, candy always gives you diarrhea, so you shouldn't do that.
Yeah. Maybe you got yelled by Saturn because you have a cavity, and then Jupiter's like, that's okay. And then Mercury's like, no, you actually do have to go to the dentist.
Yeah. I would listen to the Mercury. Mercury knows what it's talking about for the most part. It's probably just going to kind of feel like a stupid go through all that to figure out that I need to schedule a dentist appointment. Like, was that necessary?
I totally see that. So yeah, we're settling at a 3.5 difficulty and a 1.5 agency. It's just one of those days, just one of those Mondays. Get your Garfield shirts out. Moving on to our September 24th. This is our Tuesday with Mars in Cancer, looking sexy as hell. And Fallen in his element, and Mercury's decan and Venus's terms, mutually applying towards a trine to Saturn. That Saturn trine is really getting close there.
This does make me think of like the beginning stages of intense, dramatic, but perhaps a bit sordid love affair. Mars, pretty strong in Cancer still, but like deeply troubled. And Venus in Scorpio is in that early third of Scorpio, very desirous, hungry for things. And she's looking for something. And she sees Mars, and Mars sees her. And there's maybe a little bit of a tension that's going to get drawn out, a little bit of drama, but that's just going to make it that much more exciting. Like, oh, who's that hot guy? Oh, he's actually a vampire. Oh, really? Yeah, don't hang out with him. Oh, okay. And then,
Oh my
8
God,
seasons
I
later.
so see that. Oh man. When I was going with the image when I made it, that was not how I was seeing it. But then after we talked about it, I was like, this is so what this is.
Yeah.
Just Mars under the waterfall having this big hero moment. I'm just gonna go in under the waterfall to gain some clarity into my journey or whatever, and just have like this big sort of cathartic moment. Full drama, full tears, painful, but who cares? He looks hot as hell, and then Venus walks by, and it's like this whole thing. because we're
Yes.
we're working up towards the Venus trine. It's really not as immediate as it might look, but I feel like that just builds the tension even more. I feel like there's something there about this early Mars and Cancer journey that feels a little sexy to me.
Yeah, I would say it's sexy but dangerous.
Yes,
So proceed
sexy
with
and
caution.
dangerous. Do not
Mhm.
make out under a waterfall. That sounds painful. But on
Yeah.
that note, today is not that difficult of a day. It's one of those middling days where we have just as much agency as we have difficulty. And it's not entirely difficult either. It's like a 2.5 on both ends. There's sexual tension in the air, a little bit of an HBO moment, but it
Yeah.
just makes it that much more dramatic and interesting.
Something's gonna
Nice.
happen.
Oh, yeah. Hilarious. Anyways, moving on. Before it gets too hot in here, we go on to our Wednesday, Mercury Day. Mercury also looking pretty fly out there. It's in Virgo, at home, exalted, in their own element, and Decan, while also in Mars's terms, opposite Neptune, trine to Uranus, and moving towards a trine to Pluto. I feel like it's Mercury tapping into uh, the collective, whatever, yeah. Just kind of like getting zapped by formulas and theories and all of the things all at once, which feels slightly maddening, especially with that Neptune opposition. But also, it brings like this stroke of genius to Mercury. And so in this image, I just have Mercury standing in front of a chalkboard full of schemes and equations that Mercury has cracked. How, where, and why that information came to Mercury on this very day is a mystery. What we can do with it is also a mystery, but it's still revelatory. It's one of those days where like learning something is more important than the actual what you're actually gonna do with it in the end. Like this, it sets up the stage for like a big sort of change in framework. But what that framework is, what is that framework is for, is I guess up to each of us.
That configuration with the outer planets, it's definitely like tapping into, you know, almost like a wider framework of maybe we'll call it collective consciousness or something. Like getting zapped with the secrets of the universe, but like your capacity to translate all of that is very limited. But Mercury in Virgo is kind of uniquely suited to identify like what parts of that are important and like actually communicate them or translate them into something tangible, like a chalkboard of equations or whatever. There's something that can be pulled out of that, but you're not going to be able to pull the actual secrets of the universe out. Maybe somebody will. I don't know. That'd be cool. But I think if you find yourself waking up in, the stream of infinity or something, and you got yourself a couple cups, to scoop out, like grab your scoops, but don't lose your mind there. Come back.
Totally. Today is like a day that's poised for epiphanies, but I feel like also it can be isolating to know something and be the only person that knows it and the only person that can understand it. I feel like that may be a bit of the challenge that Mercury's faced with today.
Grappling with the mysteries of the universe is not always the easiest thing. So we're going to give it a good like 3.5 difficulty, but maxing out the ability to maybe translate some of that or put some of that to use, put some of that into action or something useful. So giving it a 5 agency.
Yeah, Mercury is strong as all hell. Thank God for
Yeah.
Mercury. All right, moving on to our Thursday. It is Jupiter's day, and Jupiter is still in Gemini. Jupiter is in detriment, in his element, the sun's decan and in Mars's terms, and somewhat void of course, which is quite unusual for a planet like Jupiter to be in such a situation. And Jupiter is continuing to slow down and get ready for that retrograde. Yeah, I feel like the biggest thing that I was leaning on for this day when I was thinking about it is just this idea of like a Jupiter void of course. There's no planets applying towards Jupiter. Jupiter is applying towards some of the outer planets, but Jupiter will go retrograde before any of that even happens. I feel like it's Jupiter just not having to be so in the tasks that Gemini has presented in the past little while. I feel like all that stuff is just catching up with Jupiter and Jupiter people out there in the world. So like, or teachers or philosophers, priests and the like. And I feel like what today presents is just kind of this delayed overwhelm. It's like now that everything is still and nothing is grabbing your attention, you actually get to feel all of the weight of the things that you've been wrestling with in the past month. And I think that can bring certain gifts because now you're actually not just repressing and bottling all that stuff up in this super adrenalized sort of way. Jupiter hasn't given up. I think giving up is not the key word necessarily to use for the day, but Jupiter's just kind of not feeling like doing the thing. And that's okay. We all need to have that moment sometimes.
Yeah. I don't know if Jupiter's always been feeling like doing the thing for, a bit, but Jupiter doesn't have a lot of pressure on him to do the thing right now. It's time to think and maybe sit with like the wider perspective, or like try to let things congeal a little bit before, making big decisions.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about last week and how we were talking about the reception with Mercury and how in the image Jupiter had just gotten the blueprint. Maybe today Jupiter, after having read the blueprint, is like, okay, now that I know what to do, fuck it. Let's just take a nap or something.
Despite there not being like tons for Jupiter to do necessarily, it's going to be hard to do those things. So we're giving it a good 3 difficulty-wise, but only a 1.5 in terms of agency. Jupiter's a little tapped out right now.
Moving on to our first Friday with Venus in Scorpio, continuing the HBO moments of our week. It's September 27th, and Venus, like I said, is in Scorpio, is in detriment in her own element, and Mars' decadent terms. She's hungry, being left by a moon square.
We covered a lot of maybe these themes with the Tuesday Mars Day discussion. Feelings and desires are starting to come more into focus and clarity, and maybe moves are being plotted. Maybe worth noting that the upcoming eclipse in Libra is ruled by Venus. Makes me more cautious about what Venus is doing overall. I feel like there's like a chance of like going after the hot vampire and maybe, forgetting yourself. Don't forget yourself, sir. Forgetting your manners and maybe going overboard when it comes to the pursuit of a certain desire. The potential for indiscretion is there. So I would continue to say, observe caution.
Yeah, you're making me think of Twilight now.
Yeah.
But I feel like that kind of is a bit of the vibe. It's like Venus falls in love with this vampire and it's just like so wants to be a vampire. The life as a vampire is not the best, Venus. I would think twice. Life as a vampire is not life. You're dead forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was also the thing that I was going for. If we see the image for the day, we have Venus in this like really like dark scene, like red lights, and she's half in the frame, half outside the frame. She's there, but she's not there. There's this sort of like mysterious sort of thing to her. And I think that with the eclipse thing is just this idea of like being hidden away. That's also another thing that comes with Scorpio territory of like the hiding and the prowling and the chasing and all of that stuff.
Yeah, there's a Scorpio, like there's that desire component, especially when Venus is there, like wanting to take in or take on something, but you can also be consumed by your desire as well. Are you consuming the thing or is it consuming you? It's hard to tell.
And on that note, today is another one of those middling days. It's a 3 in difficulty and a 2.5 in agency. And I think the lack of agency is really just Venus being kind of like lost in the sauce of her desires. And like sometimes it's really hard to manage the Venus in Scorpio itch to get that itch scratched. Can be kind of fun if you're smart about it.
Or maybe the difficulty and pain of it is what is kind of hot too.
Like maybe that's what you're looking for. Cool. Well, getting close to the end of our week, we go to September 28th, which is our Saturday. Saturn, still in Pisces. Peregrine, out of element in Jupiter's decan and terms, mutually applying towards a trine to Mars with reception, because Saturn is in a water sign, which Mars tends to like.
We got our supervillain trine completing on Saturday. And like their, mutual distaste for Cancer is like a reason to bond, right? There's the potential for nefarious plans to be formed that could be, quite destructive if proceeded with. But I think a lot of opportunity to like get some shit off of your chest, maybe like invite a friend over to commiserate with. I think commiseration might be like the most productive use of Saturday.
Yeah, because we started talking about that last week, and just as the trine was kind of like building up, but I feel like it's really today that all that stuff gets to happen. I think that Mars and Cancer might really kind of like just double down on Saturn's qualms with still being stuck in the middle of this Piscean ocean and just being like, fuck this. Let's just, I don't know, like throw a whole bunch of oil in the ocean. Let's just destroy this whole fucking shit so we can get over with it.
I think the fact that Mars is super close to being conjunct Sirius as this aspect is forming makes me a little nervous, because Mars is still pretty strong in Cancer, capable of destruction, certainly. But Sirius kind of gives this, like, desire to make a large impact, potentially at the expense of, one's own mortality. Like, leave a mark, even if I die in the process, especially with Mars. So, yeah, it seems like getting carried away with some misanthropic ideas and a willingness to go a little too hard and too big, and maybe having actual success with that. Because you combine a bad idea and a willingness to die and capacity to actually do it, that's a pretty dangerous combination.
Yeah, I feel like the harshness of the day is kind of just that. But I guess the thing to soften some of that harshness is also just addressing like the things that you're willing to sacrifice. Because I feel like that's the thing that became very clear in this conversation is like both Mars and Saturn are kind of in dire circumstances. And when that happens and they're collaborating, it's kind of like, you have nothing to lose. So might as well just fucking do it. Like maybe self-sacrificing will get you towards a goal, or maybe by sacrificing something that you really love, you're gonna get to do this other thing that seems awesome. But will it be worth all this effort? Will it be worth all this pain? The thing that I wanted to go with the image, because it is still very similar to last week's. We had this really ominous sunset, and we continue with that. But now the Mars figure is actually close to the little old lady Saturn in the boat and presenting her with a box. And I think that the biggest question that the image presents is like, what's in the box? It's like, well, like you're in the middle of the ocean, like you're getting some help, but is this thing really helpful? And I guess that's a question up for the audience to decide, I guess. It's like, is it really worth taking that box? Or were you better off just paddling away like you were before?
Yeah, like in the original Dune, there is a box, and it's a mysterious box that you have to put your hand in. And it's a question about what's inside the box, and the answer is pain. It's actually pain inside the box. There may be purpose behind that pain. But, do you still want to reach in and grab it? Even if Venus thinks it's super hot, you might want to think.
Nice. Well, on that note, we went with a 3 difficulty. It's just the ability to tend to those difficulties that is kind of like taking a bit of a step back. So especially during eclipse season, like we said last week, things are pretty wobbly. And I think that we can really feel that in these daily ratings. But not the end of the world.
Yeah. With Saturn, there's always the ability to exercise restraint. So I think that can help.
Yeah. Cool. Well, moving on to the last day of our week, it is our first Sunday with the sun in Libra. Sun in Libra, not so hot for the sun. It has fallen out of his element. The sun is also in the moon's decan, but it's being received by Mercury in his turn and element, because today is a Mercury Cazimi day.
Yeah, this is the Sunday right before an eclipse. I don't, love it. There are some interesting things I think that could happen with it, like the Mercury Cazimi. There's a good opportunity to like analyze or gain some clarity or insight on patterns of like over identification with the roles you play in relationships, or, your job, or, you know, your political affiliations, like all of the above, all the things that aren't you that people tend to sort themselves into. The South Node is kind of helpful for disassociating from things. So like that kind of detachment and maybe ability to, see from the perspective of, a non being could be useful for like untangling some of those ideas.
Removing some labels, I guess, or reassessing labels that you might identify with, sort of
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah. Could also be like ignoring or refusing to listen to like a call to justice.
Yeah, it's definitely rough for the sun. The sun, I think I kind of continued on this trend of the sun being humbled down, because from the end of Virgo until now, the sun kind of like took a lot of punches, especially after that Saturn opposition that we had. Now the sun going into Libra, being fallen. I feel like it's just this sort of realization that maybe you're not that special. And you're not special because everybody else is also special. You're the sun, but there's also a billion other stars in the sky. And that was the thing that was going on with the image. I was thinking about Mercury. Typically, we talk about Mercury as being like a humane planet, really down with humanity and always like willing to be there and to be helpful towards the people. But what that means is that the sun, which is kind of like the royalty, gets to lose a little bit of the authority that comes with the crown. And that's what I have in the image. It's like Mercury has given everybody else a crown as well. So the sun kind of just gets lost in this crowd and just kind of loses its authority. Like the leaders are just kind of like, what does it mean that you're a leader?
That can be a really convenient excuse for shirking responsibility for something, or to shirk the responsibility to do the right thing. It's like, oh, well, everybody else is doing it. Am I really responsible? We're all, equally sovereign in this situation. So you can lose your authority from that perspective. But also, lessons of humility are to be found there as well.
Yeah. Or even like speeches on humility, also with the Mercury Cazimi, just kind of like delivering the word of humility.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if the sun is that capable of inspiring right now. So it might not be so well received, especially with Venus totally blind to what's going on there. But it is what it is. We live and we learn and we move on to bigger and better things. That's the mantra of life. Yeah, so today is not the best of days. We gave today a 4 difficulty and a 1 agency. But like we said, it is what it is.
Flip side of that is that you don't get to control the world. You're not king and sovereign of all nations and peoples. So, accepting that like that it actually is what it is. You don't always get to pick what everybody else does.
Yeah, so summarizing our week. So Kyle, in 1 sentence, how's Monday like?
Overtired toddler just wants to go to bed. That's the vibe.
Yeah, go take a nap, everybody. Tuesday, and I don't think there's any other key word or phrase for that day. Just steamy, sexy Mars Day on HBO.
Wednesday, good day for mapping out the mysteries of the universe.
Solve the meaning of life this Wednesday. Yes. For Thursday, I give up, but just for now. But also on Thursday, we do have our Uranus change of bounds. Uranus just ingressed into Saturn's bounds in Taurus, and you should watch our video on that.
Yeah, do that Friday. Kind of kinky, but be careful.
Steer clear of vampires, guys.
For real.
Yeah, for real. On Saturday, I guess it's what's in the box.
Or what's in the box?
Sunday. Crowns for everybody.
Yeah, for all, sure. Including, the burden of wearing them.
Yes. Everybody burdened.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a
Yes.
Sunday. Cool. Well, this week it's looking pretty okay. It's a little all over the place. Difficulty kind of like stagnates throughout the week. We'll kind of pretty much settle at a 3 overall. And then we do have a little bit of a peak in agency towards Wednesday. But then after that, things really start to tank down very, very quickly and kind of dramatically so. So it's a week to get things done on Wednesday. All other days, you kind of just hope for the best.
So for this week, we got to give it a good 3.5. It's pretty rough. Potential for some bad decisions, maybe. You know, still a little bit of strength, a little bit we can do about it. We're going to give it a 2.5 average for agency.
Yeah. Still wobbling. Just
Yeah, still
keep at
wobbling.
it. But that is our week, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Joji. I am an astrologer. I've been doing that the whole day, the whole week. It's been 4 years now that I've been doing this. And if you want a reading with me, my website is themercuryrising.com.
I'm Kyle. I'm, one of those two. And you can find me at kylepierceastrologer.com.
Yeah, just one of those. Just another one of them.
Those things.
Well, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next week.
Ta-ta for now.